and welcome. It's time again for another edition of Democracy Today, our political meeting point. I am Ojon Bello. We are streaming live on facebook.com/democracytoday. Today I'm having a guest from Kaduna State to discuss the recent happenings in that part of the country and then extend to other parts of Nigeria. What qualifies the gentleman to be an authority on such issues? Well, the man, Dennis Emmanuel, was an aide to 3 executive governors of Kaduna State, Ahmed Makarfi, Namadi Sambo, who later became Nigeria's vice president. He also worked with late Governor Patrick Akua. Of course, we shall talk about political associations, countdown to 2019 elections, herdsmen, farmers clashes, intra- and inter-party wranglings, scoreboard of some political office holders, and more. Once again, you can join us on facebook.com/democracytoday. After this break, we'll go into the question and answer session. Dennis, you're welcome to the program.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Let's go straight to Southern Kaduna. I want to ask you this question, being you are a Christian. Actually, are Christians in Kaduna State under threat, mostly in the southern part of the state?
Well, if you say under threat, I may not really want to align with that Christians are under threat in southern Kaduna or in Kaduna State or anywhere in the country as a whole. But what I want to say is there may be frictions here and there. And there are people who will want to probably give it a religious coloration as to what is actually happening. But it is always very difficult to separate politics from religion. And that's why at times when we see situations like that, where you see unnecessary killings, and then we have crises coming here and there in Kaduna State and other states of the country, people try as much as possible to want to tie it to religion. And therefore, if you tie it to religion, then one can begin to look at it from this angle and say probably maybe the lives of Christians in the north as a whole, or in Kaduna State in particular, may be under threat. But I don't want to look at it from that angle. And I don't believe that the life of Christians in Kaduna is under threat. There may be crises here and there, agreed. There may be problems between herdsmen and farmers, agreed. There may be killings going on in Kaduna. But Christians will not and cannot be under threat in Kaduna State because Kaduna there has a substantial number of people who are Christians. Most of the people in southern Kaduna is predominantly dominated by Christians. And when you come towards the central zone, you know you have 3 senatorial zones, like what is obtained in other states. Zone 1 is predominantly, you could say, dominated by Muslims. When you come to Zone 2, this is where a lot of us want to classify as no man's land, because most of us who are perhaps non-indigenous, as we are called, operate and live within this area. Then Zone 3 is predominantly dominated by southern Kaduna people who, of course, you know, are mostly Christians. Now, if you see the crisis that rocks Kaduna at times, if it is not a crisis that has religious coloration, like what happened in 2000 and 2001, or you want to begin to look at these ones that is currently going on, these ones that happened in the immediate past, the ones that happened in southern Kaduna, which they have tagged herdsmen and farmers clash, one can comfortably say that probably maybe you have some political undertones to most of these things. I would not want to believe that Christians are under threat in Kaduna or any other place in this country, because I know, given any time, the Christians will always be able to stand on their own. And like I heard someone say something yesterday, Christians are peace-loving people, and they will always prefer to be peaceful and stay within the confines of the law wherever they find themselves.
Oh, so are you likely to be in agreement with what SOCAPO is saying, that Southern Kaduna People's Union, that fertile nature of their land is attracting Fulani herdsmen?
It may not be too far from that because, of course, you know, predominantly those in Southern Kaduna are farmers. Okay. And for you to be a farmer, and a successful one at that, of course, you will know that you have a fertile land to do that. And therefore, any land that is fertile will also equally draw people who want to graze. Because at times when you see towards the northern part, which is more or less dry, and at times if you get to such seasons as the Harmattan period, it becomes so dry and windy that vegetation there may not be too good for people to graze their cattle. And therefore, if somebody in Sokapu is saying that the fertile nature of the land is what is attracting herdsmen to come to southern Kaduna, which of course multiplies and then leads us into the crisis and the problems we have been seeing in the recent past, it may not be too far from the truth. But the fact remains that in as much as you have fertile land in southern Kaduna, we should not forget the fact that these people are predominantly farmers. Every single community has what it is noted for. If these ones are noted for agriculture and other things that they do, but predominantly farmers, I am of the opinion, and I simply believe, that allowing people to graze through that area and probably destroying crops and everything, even when the government is telling us that we should be diversifying to agriculture. And yet, you seem to be doing things, speaking from both sides of your mouth. It is really a terrible thing for us to see, but the fact remains that it may not be too far-fetched. If Sokapu is saying it is the fertile land that is fermenting or causing these problems to come, I think I want to align with that.
Will you want to say that the Kaduna State government is doing well enough to curtail this?
Well, the man at the helm of affairs has several times had occasions to make statements that one will actually wonder whether, the government really has the intention or the political will to quell these problems.
Not the capability.
Not the capability, the political will. Because the government, or any government, should have the will to quell any crisis at any given time if such crisis happens to arise. But the problem is, does the government have the will? Or government is simply playing politics over it? When we sit down and begin to see where lives is lost and people are dying by the second, people are murdered and hacked down in cold blood, and yet people sit down and in the comforts of their offices and just make statements without adding force to these statements. I agree that the governor can also say, like every other governor will say, I mean, the coercive elements of government is not under his control. He will say that he has to, have recourse to the federal government before he will have the police or the army move in to quell any crisis. But there are certain statements that a governor shouldn't make. There are certain actions a governor or the head of any state in this country shouldn't make, so that you, rather than aggravate issues, you should do things that will pacify and quell problems instead of just, adding fire to the fuel that is already there. So I feel that the governor should have done more, and the governor should actually do more. Perhaps the governor on his own part will say he's trying his best, but well, people will feel and see that your best might not be good enough. When it appears that you're saying that this is supposed to be grazing routes, and then you do not have recourse to those who also are farmers around that area, people will begin to interpret some statements. When you say that you have to pay, you had to pay, because I am sure I heard the governor made such a statement one time. I read it somewhere, that the governor actually said he paid some money to the herdsmen for crisis that was there before they lost their cattle. He went searching for the herdsmen and paid them money. Within the public domain, the interpretation given to this, you would not even want to hear it. And therefore, these are statements that somebody in that capacity shouldn't say. When crisis like that occurs, the governor should be very tactical with the statements he puts out there, because whatever he puts out there is sure to be interpreted by people.
Kaduna State has been in the news of late because of the sack of over 20,000 teachers. And this triggered a bitter row between the Nigerian Union of Teachers and the state government. Have we heard the last about this?
No, I don't think we've heard the last about it. The last I heard from a statement that was issued by the SA media to the governor was that even those who were sacked, above 20,000 of them, like you rightly observed, were given the opportunity to come back and reapply after NUT did all the things, and NLC, of course, came to do some demonstrations there. But it doesn't end there. When you put out upward of 21,000 people out of job, and then you ask them to come again and start the process of reapplication to see if you could employ them. Some of us see that as a gimmick, because initially that was not the original intention of government. government would have been put under pressure to make that move. What the governor actually said ab initio was that these ones, he gave them an aptitude test and they failed. And therefore, because they failed, he will phase them out of the system. It is not bad. I want to put this on note. It is not bad that you have educational system that is good because our children will pass through there. Yeah. But where you have to remove upward of 21,000 people out of job, considering the season and times that we are in, this is something that one should look at. Another thing we should look at is there is what they call training and retraining. No one is a reservoir of knowledge. And therefore, as time and season comes, one needs to be upgraded. The governor should have reasoned intelligently to find out all these teachers that he came to inherit within the system when he became governor. Did he create any room for these teachers to be trained? Did he create any room for training and retraining of these people before giving them this test to write? What standard did he even use to administer this test to them? I have read somewhere that there is a board in charge of teachers who should be handling such things to do. And therefore, the governor took that responsibility on himself and decided to administer tests, all for him to come back again when pressure mounted to say, okay, you can reapply. Some of us feel that asking these people to reapply, you are simply trying your decision you've already taken. Yes. You just wanted to fulfill all righteousness as if you didn't, because if we want to follow critically everything you want to do thereafter, we would want to see that amongst these upward 20,000 people that you asked to leave the system, when you ask them to come and reapply, how many of them are you going to give jobs? Already I heard someone say to me in Kaduna that over 25,000 people applied to become teachers. I also heard in Kaduna that private schools are losing teachers these days because everybody who was a teacher in a private school is now rushing to go and apply for this Air scheme. So if you have a situation where you're looking for 21,000 teachers and you have close to 50,000 people applying, it can only be one answer. That answer will be that those original 20 or 21,000 that was asked to leave the system are just there to fill up the number. The government is already planning to do what they want to do.
No hope for them.
They are just trying to pacify us and fulfill all righteousness.
Now here there will be this recruitment. Even before the government now said, all right, you people that were start can reapply. We learned that a kind of recruitment was already in progress.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, has it been concluded now?
Well, I wouldn't know. It's still on. I wouldn't know if it has been concluded, but I know that that's where I got this figure from. That about 25,000 people had already applied for this before government came behind to say, okay, you that we asked to go, you also have the liberty to also come and apply and reapply again and let us start the issues of employing all afresh. We know these tricks. You are just trying to fulfill all righteousness by doing this so that tomorrow no one will hold you responsible and say you sent out 21,000 people into the labor market without giving them an opportunity. This is not the kind of opportunity we're asking El-Rufai to give them. Some of us said, you didn't train these people and retrain them. You should have created an opportunity for these people to be trained. It's not, at times people make mistakes. I am sure, I know very well that making mistakes with the life of children can be very, very dangerous. But it also means that we must look at it and temper justice with mercy, in the sense that pushing 21,000 people out into the labor market without giving them an opportunity to be trained and retrained.
And then come and sit for the exam again.
I don't think it is the best thing the government is doing.
All right, we'll go into mainstream politics now and straight to the ruling party, All Progressives Congress, APC, where we have just a few days ago, Ahmed Tinubu was mandated to settle feuding parties within the party. And you will recollect that we were hearing it, not with authority, that the man was having some grouse with the APC. Could this be a way to pacify Tinubu that, okay, we'll go and be settling the feuding parties within the APC?
Well, I think politics is in the air, and that can only be the answer. Politics is in the air because APC got into government 2015, and by this time, by May this year, they would have spent about 3 years. There's one thing I want us to note. The way we count years in politics is different from the way you count years in the conventional society. If you are given a mandate to serve for 4 years, the moment you have been in office for 3 years, politically it's assumed that you have served 4 years. Because the last year will be second to the last year, and the last year is actually devoted to campaigns and political activities. And therefore, if you've spent 2 years in office, it should be assumed politically that you've spent 3. Of course, it is clear for us to see what is happening today. Everybody is beginning to jostle and bustle, talking politics here and there. The politics of development and economics has been relegated to the rear. Now people are trying to see how they can vie and get tickets. So when you see government get up, after keeping Tinubu sidelined for over 2 years, and then on the 3rd year when you need the man again to come and do a dirty job, you just quickly go and package something and bring Bola Tinubu and say, okay, come and begin to settle disputes. The question I ask, is he a lawyer? Even if he were, is he a judge? Even if he's a judge, is this the best time to bring him in? These problems have been ensuing in APC. I shouldn't even be talking about APC, but as someone who is in politics and who knows what is going on, it is better to say, crisis in the party, a party that has not been able to hold its convention for upward of 3 to 4 years now, and then just all of a sudden, because you are faced with a situation, the first thing or the next thing you do is to begin to set up a makeshift panel and then put Tinubu there to go and begin to settle disputes. The question I ask is, which disputes is Tinubu going to settle, and how is he? I don't envy that job at all for him, because I wonder how he's going to go about it. People say he has the magic hands to turn things around, but I know that this time it may be difficult for him, because if you check Kaduna State alone, there is crisis between the governor and Shehu Sani. There is crisis between the governor and teachers. There is crisis between the governor and other members of his cabinet. And I know there's one commissioner that resigned from his cabinet. There's crisis between him and that. Yeah. There's crisis between him and the party. In Kaduna State alone, you have the group they call Restoration Group, you have the other one they call the Akida Group, and you have the one that the governor is heading from Government House. So I wonder how it's going, and this is multiplied all over the country.
Okay. All over the country. Even from Rivers, we have the one between Amechi and Magnus.
Yes.
From Kogi, Yahaya Bello and Dino Melaye. Kano.
Yes. Kwankwaso and Ganduje.
So, Oyo State, Ajimobi and Communications Minister.
Now you begin to see how Bola Tinubu is going to do this, how he's going to be moving around the 30s. And I can assure you that this may not just be within these states we have mentioned. If you look at it very critically, every single state in Nigeria today, whether APC is there as heading it or not, there is problem in the party. But you know, APC has one very good quality. The quality of trying to use a very dark basin to cover some certain things that will normally, on a good day, come out. And I'm telling you that those things are about to manifest itself this time, because there's no way Bola Tinubu is going to go and begin to settle problems without the entire and enlarged society understanding the nature of the problem that is there. I do not envy that job at all, but I just believe that it is a little bit too late for the APC to have done that, having sidelined the one they call their leader for all these years, and then you just feel that you wake up in the morning and bring the man to come and do this hatchet job. I just feel they are trying to engage him and probably make him feel important. But I want to know, and I want to believe that Bola Tinubu is smarter than that. He should begin to think towards that axis and that line, that if I am used to do the dirty job, assuming without conceding that he succeeds in doing it, what will happen to Bola Tinubu peradventure APC comes to power again? Probably they may sideline him for life, and he may not find it funny. So I know he is smarter than that. I know that he is thinking deep. I know that whatever he's going to do, he's a good politician, no doubt about that. I know whatever he's going to do in this task that has been given to him, he will go into it with his brains, and he will do it thinking deeply.
Well, we are in the season of letters. We are used to retired General Obasanjo sending in letters. Now we have another one recently from Ibrahim Babangida. The two letters are asking Buhari not to even try going to contest again in 2019. How do you react to these letters?
Well, the content of the first letter, people have been writing letters. Dele Momodu have been writing letters on net, and I've been reading them. But probably because Dele Momodu is not a former president. And it is only presidents that write to presidents, and that's why these letters, are making the rounds every day. My first take on Obasanjo's letter, President Obasanjo's letter, is most of the things Obasanjo wrote there are things that I believe every Nigerian, every right-thinking Nigerian should know that it is true. The things President Obasanjo wrote in his letter regarding what is actually currently going on in the government, and where he summarized it into 2 or 3 points, where he said you're clannish in your activities, the religion of duty, and you have lost focus within, the fight against corruption. If you look at it carefully, what the man has said is actually right. But where I have little issues is where he decided to say that it is the best thing that could ever happen is to shut down the 2 parties on board and then look for a third force. And I am not too comfortable with that. Why I'm not comfortable with the third force is this. If you have a masquerade that puts on beautiful costumes and comes to dance in the market square, no matter how beautiful the costumes look, no matter how beautiful the dance steps of this masquerade, the most important thing is the person who is inside that masquerade. What I mean here is very simple. If we are going to look at the suggestion or the idea of having a third force, who are those propelling this third force? Were they not there in the first and second force? It is not a problem to have 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th force, but the problem remains that who are those pioneering it?
Are we getting some human beings from outer space?
We don't need to get human beings from outer space to come and pioneer, but the thing is, who are those pioneering it? If you were a member of the first force, which of course we know what the president would have meant by that, second force, for him to say third force, it means there was a first force in place, there is a second one in place right now, and he's hoping that a third one should come. Who are those pioneering this third force? And what I hear them say, and what I read from what they have said, is that they are looking at a situation where they want youths and women to be prominent in these things. But yet when you see the gathering of these people, you hardly see those people they are talking about sitting. You see them standing behind. What message does that send to you? The message is very clear. We are out again to use you to get ourselves to where we want to be. President Obasanjo may not want to be president in Nigeria again, because probably the law will not permit him to do so, or even if it does, he may not want to be. And he has said it, that wherever these movements or coalitions decide to metamorphose into a political party, he will be out of it. But he didn't tell us that if there are people within this fold who intend to contest elections, whether he will throw his weight and support behind them to run for elections. He never told us that. So we can assume, without conceding again, that maybe if certain people within that coalition for Nigeria movement are people who want to contest election and are not youths and women, still these of the first and second force, probably maybe he will want to still see how he can throw his weight behind them. So it will be doing a different thing or trying to get a different result, doing the same thing altogether. And I don't think if you keep on doing things the same way you've been doing it, the result can be different.
All right, when that of General IBB came out, and that was actually circulated by his spokesman, Kazim Afegbua, Kazim Afegbua immediately was declared wanted by the police, and later on we heard that on getting to the IGP, it became a friendly chat. Then House of Reps came up and said, police, stay out of politics. Have you ever thought that Nigeria police had been in politics?
Well, maybe in the past, Nigerian police may not have been involved in politics the way the police is involved in politics today. I read also that the person who started all this made reference to Kano, where we have read several things coming out of there, where we have read that thuggery and all manner of political misbehavior is taking place in Kano under the watch and the protection and guidance of the police. This is where it becomes dangerous. Where the police is supposed to come in and maintain law and order. And it appears as if rather than doing that, the police is just interested in supporting or shielding one side against the other. It becomes a problem. It shows that you are becoming very partisan. And lately, in the statements credited to some people in the police, especially the spokesman of the police, and even the Inspector General of Police himself, the statements leaves you wondering whether these statements are made out of mistake, or they are statements deliberately made, or they are statements made because the person didn't know what to say. But those statements, to some of us who will sit down and analyze it, we feel that these statements show extinct of partisanship inside it. And the police is supposed to be neutral because you are paid with the taxpayers' money. And if all of us gather money to pay you to be neutral, to do a job for us, you should not be seen making statements that you're making. Neither should we see you siding with people against the other. Therefore, since this is happening now, everybody is right to say that the police is becoming partisan. And that warning that has gone out to the police, I think, is very apt. Stay away from politics. Concentrate on your duty.
I think it became heightened when even the first PROs said Benue State Governor Autumn was a drowning man.
Oh, wonderful.
That really infuriated
me. Of course, well, you could imagine how a policeman of that, I expect that if you are the first PRO at that level, you should watch and guard your statements. And I am told, I didn't watch the program, but I heard someone say that even when the person who was moderating the program asked him to withdraw that statement, he vehemently said he will not withdraw it. And therefore, these are all the things that point. These are indicators to the fact that something is actually going on. If the first PRO can call a sitting governor a drowning man, knowing the situation that we see in Benue, considering what is going on in Benue and how tempers have risen there, instead of saying things that will pacify the people, you can cast such aspersion on the chief executive of that state. It's pitiable.
Well, on that note, we end this program. We want to believe that you have a nice time for the past half hour listening to us. My guest has been Dennis Emmanuel. Apart from actually dwelling on Kaduna State issues, we have been able to talk on political associations, countdown to 2019 elections, herdsmen farmers clashes, intra and inter-party wranglings, scoreboard of some political office holders, and more. Dennis, thank you very much for coming on to the program.
My pleasure always, my pleasure.
I am Ojon Bello. We hope you want to join us same time tomorrow for another edition of Democracy Today. Bye for now.